Okay, so what were some other things that I needed right away? You guys remember? Some other things that I needed right at the beginning? Like in order to write simple stuff, like do you guys remember what the first assignment you got was? Yeah, there was a first sketch, right? That was like the print line hello world, which I assume you've all kind of done here while I've been chatting. So what was the like first real task that you got? Rolling. Yeah, rolling some dice. So that's going to be your first real task here, right? So in order to roll dice, you're going to need some kind of random stuff and an array, right? Well, there aren't any. So there are arrays in Python, but don't use them. They're a mess. Use the list, right? So you're going to have the availability of a list. Use that to store what values you've got. You're going to need some kind of randomness. And I think you're probably going to want some kind of for looping. So let me show you a little bit of that. If you want some random stuff, just do import random. And then we could go look. So let's go look on this one. Let's see. I think there's a... Oops, that's getting more complicated than I want. Wow, that's super helpful. So please note, looking things up is not going to be quite as easy as it was with processing, right? There's not just one site to go to. So you can search through either or both of these or just Google it. If you Google it, you'll find that the thing you want for import random is random.random integer. So I'm going to just print out a random integer. Oh, and very conveniently, right, it supplies some prompts. Randint saves you the trouble of typecasting, right? So you don't have to force this thing to be an integer. It'll just be an integer on its own. And that thing takes a couple of... Oh, look. It returns a random integer in a range from A to B, including both endpoints, right? So if you want to roll a 6-sided die or something, you're going to need a range between 1 and 6, and it actually includes both endpoints.
Will it roll float or integer?
This one, because I'm calling the randint function, will return an integer. If you want to float, you can call the random function. So I think right now, oh, for a second there I was worried that it was only returning 3s and 4s. But I think I'm getting numbers 1 through 6. I still haven't seen a 2, but I kind of believe that there it is. Okay, so I feel like this is probably a die roller more or less. You don't really want to have to push the run all the time. So if you want to roll a bunch of these, you do something like this, right? Like 4. Oh, and this is one that I'm going to show off the power of this silly thing. So there's a for loops area in the Python tutorial here. So you can either loop through a list or loop through a string or there it is. So this is what I'm going to steal. So for x in range of number, range is a weird function here. It actually is a list of the values from 0 up to what you give it, not including what you gave it. So range of 6 is a list 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not 6. So if I wanted to roll my little die here, a few times I do something like for I in range of, I'm going to roll it 4 times. So that's going to roll 0, 1, 2, and 3. Right, so that's what I is going to be. And if I hit run, what do I expect this to do? Oh, it's whining because it... You guys see the whining here? Invalid syntax. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, you need a colon on these. And then it's like, what? Oh, shut up. Bite me. Expected an indented block. Oh, this IDE's gotten smarter since the last time I played this game. Damn it, I really wanted it to be dumb. So, the reason it expects an indented block is one of those, in Python, things that are indented are actually a part of the above, like, looping, right? So in this case, I want something to execute in a for loop, right? I need print to be a part of that for loop. There are no curly braces in this language to limit blocks of code. So the way it does it is with indents. So if you want this print to actually work, you need to indent it. You guys see that?
Okay.
Now it'll actually treat that. So that's the roll for I is 0, the roll for I is 1, the roll for I is 2, and the roll for I is 3, which are the things in range of 4. If you did something like this, okay, fine. So it is somewhat possible that you might write code like this, right? You're not super careful about what you indent. In this case, I expect this to print how many times?
Once.
Yeah, just a once. So it's going to go in here, right? It's going to import random, and then 4 times it's going to square 3. And then once it's done squaring 3 4 times, then it's going to print out a random integer. So you got to be super careful with your typesetting in Python because it is not as forgiving as processing. Right? Processing those curly braces do a lot of heavy lifting for you.
Oh, so you can accidentally screw something up in here and it'll be like, seems like everything's fine to me.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
So
outside the block.
Yeah, so if statements, else statements, whiles, do's, fors, anything that expects a multi-line block can easily be screwed up in here by an accidental backspace.
Because there's no termination character.
Yep.
It only ends when the intended block goes back to the previous indent level.
Yeah, and that can be a mess, right, when you have a bunch of blocks nested inside each other, right? So you're doing a for loop, and then inside the for loop, you're doing a for loop, and then in there's a switch or something, right? That gets nuts. So you just have to be really careful with your indentation. If you download something like PyCharm, it has some add-ons that you can do to like color code indents and stuff. You guys shouldn't be quite that complicated yet, but if you find yourself having trouble, tell me and we'll work on getting a different IDE for you. Cool?